Are you ready to meet the moment? Ozzy and our friends at Chevrolet are proud to present Real Talk, Real Change to help foster racial equality in America. And we're inviting you to help. Join me, Carlos Watson, as I talk with key leaders from across the country about racial disparities in America's healthcare system. Look for The Carlos Watson Show and Real Talk, Real Change on YouTube and subscribe. Or download The Carlos Watson Show wherever you get your podcasts.
Tune it in, turn it up, and rip off the knob.
This show is brought to you by The Makery, the podcast network for makers.
Welcome to Knife Talk. This is a podcast for knife makers, knife enthusiasts, and everybody else. I'm Jeff Fader, Fader Knives. I'm here with Mareko Momasi Fire Arts, and that's it. No Craig. No Craig. Fucking Craig. No fucking Ben Snore. Yes, this has been a day of nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
This is like our fourth or fifth go at this, right?
This is probably our fourth or fifth go at this, and it's annoying as fuck to the point where I'm just like, let's just all go home. This is bullshit. Let's just go home. What happened is early this morning, I got a message from Craig that there was work being done on his road in the town that he's in. And part of that work had to do with the internet. So all the internet and Wi-Fi was cut off, and he was without any kind of internet, Wi-Fi, whatever. So he started texting me from the McDonald's drive-through. He loves the McDonald's drive. He goes to the McDonald's drive-through way more than I would imagine, but fine, you know.
Does he message you from there often with his Royale with cheese?
No, but I know that when his wife Amy had gone away and he was alone with the kids, I know that his move was to take them to McDonald's.
Hey,
remember that?
You know, you got to live your best life.
He was living his best life. So he was texting. He said he was texting me from using the Wi-Fi at McDonald's, and probably stuffing his face with French fries, and then having a Big Mac, and then getting all his. He said he was downloading as many videos as he could because he didn't think he was going to be able to get any Wi-Fi for the weekend. So we were bummed out because, you know, now that we're taking phone calls, it's been a lot of fun, and it's changed the dynamic of this podcast completely. So we were thinking, well, what can we do? Because Craig has the board, and because he runs the board, we can't take phone calls. We could, you know, I don't want to take our phones and stick them up to the microphone, and
No.
It sounds like shit. And the fact is just like, I don't, you know, it didn't want to work. So we made an idea. I said, well, you know, maybe we can get a fill-in, and once in a while we'll have a fill-in. But it was very late notice, and I actually sent a message to our friend Ben Snore, and he's like, I'll be your fill-in, and it would have been great because then, you know, all of a sudden you have this completely different voice from Craig, and you know, he'll make some French jokes and stuff like that, and you know, you get a cowboy this and whatever. And then we had him on, and something going on in Clarendon, Texas, because his feed was at least a minute behind ours, and we just couldn't make it work. So we're very sorry that he couldn't make it, but we're here, and we'll be taking phone calls next week. And look, what can you do? What can you do? How have you been, Mareko?
I've been all right. I've been productive in the shop. I got another knife mailed out this last week. I got some steel, a new crazy pattern I'm working on, or at least crazy to me. I don't know. I've never seen anybody do it before. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm kind of messing with it before I really go for it with some different material. I'm just making this from some scrap stuff, kind of quote unquote scrap stuff I have laying around.
Yeah.
Just to kind of work out any kinks that need to be figured out before I really go for it. And basically use a whole billet. This is just, like I said, it's just scrap material. So it's only about 3 cubic inches. It's not really that much material. I might be able to get like a paring knife out of it or something, but it should be cool. And hopefully I'll have something to post this week. And then, just getting ready. You know what? So as we record, today is Friday. I'm getting my second COVID shot today. I'm not too sure how I'm gonna feel this afternoon or this evening, I guess. But tonight is my brothers-in-law and I don't get together very often to just hang out, the three of us. And tonight is one of our nights where we get together, we do some barbecue, we get whiskey and beer out, and we watch some movies and talk shit and whatever. And it's always a good time, but I'm kind of worried that it's gonna mess me up if I try to drink too much or anything. So I gotta keep that dialed back tonight.
It's interesting that you say that because I had my second COVID shot on Tuesday.
Okay.
And I have a very funny story about this, my COVID shot. I feel fine. I felt fine afterwards.
Sure.
I was worried because a lot of people are getting bad reactions. Even the pharmacist said, people are getting bad reactions. Don't stress about it. I didn't have bad reactions. My arm was a little bit sore the next day, but I didn't have any reactions. But I'll tell you the funny story. And I hope this doesn't happen to you. So
okay.
I had the second COVID shot. I went down to the pharmacy, and we know the pharmacist because the pharmacist is involved with the place that my wife works in. And so I kind of had the white glove service to a certain degree. So I was talking to him for a while, and then they said, we're ready for your shot. And, I go into the room, and then there was this young woman who was talking to this young man. And the young woman was the supervisor, and the young man was and I didn't really know what they were talking about, but they were hush, kind of hushing. And I heard the supervisor say to the young guy, "You're going to be fine. Don't worry. I believe in you. Just do your thing. You'll be fine. Everything will be fine." And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the first time he's ever done this. This is the first shot he's ever given or something like that. And so in my mind immediately goes to well, what do you do? And am I going to be a Karen and saying I don't want a shot from a guy who's never done it before? Which is only going to make things worse. So my mind is spinning how do you behave? And I'm thinking to myself, at least, you know what? These students got to learn somehow, right? I had a friend of mine who was a tattooist. It was his first time doing tattoos. And I said, all right, you can do it to me. It's fine. You can't make him nervous. So I thought, well, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk to the supervisor and not look at the guy. And then I'll just let him do his thing. How bad can it be? How bad can it be? But in my mind, as soon as I think of how bad could it be, it's like he jams it in, he slips, and then he breaks the needle off in my arm. That to me is how bad it could be. That to me is how bad it could be. That in my mind immediately goes, yeah. So I'm talking to the supervisor, and I've just decided that I'm just going to not even focus on the student. I'm just going to focus on and at the time we heard they're having problems with, there's 6 people who had problems, 6 women who had problems with the Johnson & Johnson. So I'm like, oh, well, tell me more about this. And so the student says to me, I'm going to be administering your second vaccine. He's very by the book. I'm administering your second vaccine. Which arm would you like to be on? Left arm, fine.
Probably
so I take my shirt off. Of course. Yeah, of course I'm wearing my of course I'm wearing the "Don't Die" T-shirt from Make Everything Shop, and I got the tattoos. I'm as intimidating as possible. The sleeves of tattoos. I probably smell terrible, and I'm just I'm probably not the guy that this guy wants to. So in my mind, I'm thinking.
Let's be honest, your resting face is kind of a resting asshole face.
Total resting asshole face. 100%. You were 100%.
I mean,
right.
I do too.
I don't look pleasant. I do not look pleasant. I don't take that as an insult at all. You're 100% right. It is completely resting asshole face. Completely. But at the same time, wearing the mask, what can you really read from a person's eyes anyway? So
sure, right.
So I decided I'm going to talk to the woman. I talked, no. And then all of a sudden he goes, okay, I'm going to administer the shot. And I said, okay, give him hell. And I was keeping it quiet, not looking at him, talking to the woman. And then I'm talking to the woman, and he goes, are you ready? And I said, I'm ready. And then I'm going to do it now. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to look at him. I'm just just do the fucking shot, dude. But I don't want to say anything because I don't want to make him nervous. And then he finally, are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going in. Are you sure you're ready? I'm like, all right, come on, man. So he gives me the shot, and then afterwards he lets out this giant sigh of relief. Oh my God. Just like that. I'm not exaggerating at all.
Yeah.
I said, was that the first shot you've ever given? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I didn't want to say anything because I want to make you nervous. And he goes, thank you so much. I was so nervous. And he's like, I'm looking at your tattoos. I don't know where to put the goddamn needle. And he's I'm freaking out. I'm like, you did a good job. You did a good job. And I said, you did a good job. And then he was just like, it was like he had this like emotional breakdown because it is the first shot he'd ever given anybody.
Right.
So all was well that ends well. But I feel fine. It was fun. I mean, what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do? Am I gonna like tell them give me somebody else? I'm like, guy gotta learn somehow.
Oh, he just needs to find a focal point to focus on your tattoo. Like, I don't know what you got on the back of your left or right shoulder. Maybe it's a tiger's eye or something like that. Or do you have an actual target on your shoulder?
On my right side, I actually do have a target, and then but nobody. And then, here's the thing about shots. And if you have tattoos, I'm gonna give you a piece of advice that I've learned a long time ago. I don't like shots. Since I was a kid, I used to hate getting shots. I hated getting shots. And I would beg the pediatrician, please, we've put people on the moon. Why do I have to have a shot? I have all the reasons, the perfect reasons in the world why you shouldn't have to. Why can't I have a pill? Why do I have to? So one time I had these tattoos and I went to get a shot for something. And this nurse says to me, I love guys like you. Guys like you, I love guys like you. The guys with the tattoos are the first ones to pass out. I love it. I can't wait. How much do you weigh? Because I look forward to I'm going to have to figure out how many people are going to have to pick you up off the ground. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not passing out. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to look in you in the eye. I'm not only that, I'm going to smile. So I smiled. I looked at her, I said, go ahead. And I looked at her eye and I smiled and I was just like, you're not going to get that satisfaction out of me. And ever since then, I have been the most compliant shot taker because I refuse to be anyone's joke.
I like that.
There
sure.
you go.
Yeah, I used to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
So regarding needles, I think when I was a kid, I used to hate getting shots, but I think I was about 19 or 20 years old when I gave blood for the first time, like donated blood. Oh. And it was the first time I'd basically really gotten shots as an adult or had a needle stuck in me. And it's in the pit of your elbow. So you can see it as it's happening. And the needle is like fucking gigantic, right?
Gigantic.
It's like a 16th of an inch drill bit almost. It's
huge.
that size. It's fucking huge. And I just watched it and I was just like, I watched it go in and they put the thing in, all the blood starts coming out and filling up the bag. And I was like, that's fucking crazy. Like, to me, it was like a curiosity. So at that point I was like, this is wild. And so they're like, okay, thanks for giving blood. I need you to sit here and drink some juice and eat a cookie. And you can't come back for whatever. It's like 55 days or something like that. And I'm like, sign me up. I'm coming back as quick as possible, which is weird.
You
because
enjoyed it?
I thought it was super interesting. I've never done any hard drugs or anything, but I was just like, this is a fucking trip. It was like, I was like outside myself observing this thing happen. And
wow.
It was the same thing when I got my wisdom teeth pulled. I only did local anesthetic because I wanted to experience having my teeth pulled out of my face. It's like this weird masochistic thing.
That's crazy. Craig, this is turning into the Full Blast podcast real quick. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. I had to get knocked out completely.
Oh, I loved it.
I didn't want anything to do with it. Oh, I don't want anything to do with it.
The guy pulling out my teeth, he was an awesome dentist, but he was a very small, like, Vietnamese man. And one of the teeth was impacted, which means instead of growing up like the rest of your teeth do, it was growing towards the rest of the teeth. And so he had to, like, cut on it before he even pulled it out, like, got vice grips in it. And first, he actually had to size up in his vice grips, and he had to end up like standing next to me on the seat. He's standing on the seat where my ass is, and he's pulling on my face.
No.
And he finally gets it out, and he hits my top teeth, and I'm just laughing, and he thinks I'm like, like like hurting.
But you're
He's
laughing.
like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. I gave him a big thumbs up and whatever smile I could give him with my face all numbed up, and I thought it was the funniest thing. So yeah, I do weird
that's
shit
crazy.
like that.
Did it make like a popping sound? The tooth comes out.
No. I don't remember. I just remember the pliers hitting my top teeth. And I thought it was hilarious. And he almost fell down and shit. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm glad I didn't go under for this. Like, to me, it was just like, it was a trip. It was a wild, it was an interesting experience. I've always been interested in having these oddball experiences. And those are obviously very minor things, but if I have an opportunity for an interesting or weird experience, I try to take it for sure.
Before I tell my wisdom teeth removal story, Brian, tell us about who's sponsoring us.
Knife Talk is sponsored by Even Heat, the manufacturers of the finest heat treat ovens available. To find your next oven, go to evenheat-kiln.com.
That's right, Even Heat. If you go to soulceramics.com, they're distributing the Even Heat ovens. So if you look in the show notes, there's actually a link in the show notes that will give you $75 off your Even Heat. Now, listen, guys, we've been doing pretty good with Soul Ceramics and Even Heat, and they don't have them on stock. So they're gonna be making them to order. So there might be a little bit of wait. But go to Soul Ceramics, follow the link in the show notes. It'll get you $75 off your Even Heat. Now let's get back to tooth talk, because all of a sudden listen, Craig's not here. He can't steer the ship. We're doing the best we can here. I have a shot story, but I want to just get it back into the when I had my wisdom teeth taken out. The dentist said to me, most people do it twice because it's too much pain. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just do it all at the same time? I said, they're going to knock me out, right? And they said, yeah, you can go to guys and knock you out. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it all in one shot. And she's just like that. She's like, people normally do that. And I was like, I'm not going to do this twice. So I went to a person that my mother had gone to. And my mother hated this oral surgeon. She despised him because he was very Italian and he was like this Goomba kind of guy. And it was like really like, she just thought he was like very déclassé. And he was just like, she just would just say all terrible things about this guy. So when they knocked me out completely. And then they took all my teeth out, and probably what you were doing, like they were standing on the chair with the pliers yanking my teeth out, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
And then apparently what I said when I was waking up after the surgery was done, I was sitting I guess I was talking to the surgeon afterwards, basically saying, my mother was wrong about you. And it was like truth serum. I was just like, yeah. I was like, my mother was completely wrong about you. You're not a piece of shit kind of guy. You're not a Goomba. And I was just like, everything she had said to me, I was just like, I don't know what she's talking about. You're not some greaseball from Staten Island. You're great. You did a great job. And then they put me in a closet, and then I guess I was singing AC/DC in the closet.
On the highway to hell?
Whatever. I don't know. It was something. And then they went out to my wife and they said, all right, who's taking Vince Vaughn home? And then that was me. And then my wife talked me home, and that was the end of that. But now back to the shots. I'll tell you a crazy shot.
How old were you when you got your wisdom teeth out?
It was a couple years ago.
Most people do it like in high school. Holy shit!
No,
a couple years ago.
Oh yeah. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. It was like it had to be. I mean, I had one dentist, and it seems like we're not going to get very far in this show, but I'm having a good time, and the listeners will too. I had a dentist in New York who I believe was scamming me because I only seem to have had cavities with her. And I had gone to 3 different dentists, one when I was younger, one to this particular woman, and then my current one now. And I only got cavities with this one person in New York. So I fucking, who knows what they were telling. I mean, they should have taken, at that rate, they should have taken my teeth out.
Oh my God.
But back to the shots, and then maybe we'll do some knife talk. The last time I had real shots, we had, and some of our listeners are probably very rural and they know all about bats. We had a bat come into our house one night, and I didn't realize they slipped through this crack between the window and the air conditioner. And I had no idea. I was sleeping like crazy, but the cat was jumping up on the bed. And the cat was just jumping like high in the air off the bed, and we just didn't understand it. And Hillary says to me, she's like, I think there's something in the room. And then I stood up, and this bat hit me in the head. And then we figured out there was a bat. Now, I grew up, my dad had a place in the country. We had we had bats, and you just get them and get them out the window or whatever.
Sure.
We weren't really worried about it. But my wife, who's a epidemiologist, nurse practitioner, she was, for the rest of the night she's up on, reading about rabies. And because it like hit my head and because it hit her a little bit, she was convinced that we need to get rabies shots. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get rabies shots in New York?
No idea.
She called the Department of Health, who lost their fucking minds, and basically they were mad that I didn't catch the bat, because what they would do is you're supposed to catch the bat and then they give it to somebody, grind that little bastard up, and they figure out if you got rabies or not. And because I was like, I opened the window, I shoot him out the window, went back to sleep, and she's like, I think we're supposed to catch it. I'm like, well, we're not catching it now.
With your bat trap that you keep in the bedroom closet?
Dude, there are videos of people with coffee cans, and they'll take a coffee can and put it against, they'll catch the bat by putting it against the coffee can sliding like a piece of paper behind it, and then they wrap it up, and then they, bonk it over the head. I don't know what the hell they do with it. Grind it up in the food processor and see if it's got rabies.
I got you.
So Hillary got to the point where she's like, we may have been exposed to rabies, and here's the problem. There is no cure for rabies. So we really need to go and the Department of Health wants us to go and get rabies shots. Like, Hillary, there's just no way we're going to have rabies from this thing. We end up going to the hospital, and they are ready for us. And we go into this room, and this nurse comes in
and everything.
No, but I mean, they're all fired up because there's not a lot of calls for like people with rabies. So they're just ready to give us the preventative rabies shots. The woman comes in and she's got a handful of shots. It's like, I referred to it as a bouquet of shots because it was so many shots in her hands. It was like her thumb and her ring finger couldn't touch. It was like 7 or 8 shots in one hand. I'm thinking, all right, they're gonna divide it up between the two of us. No, they did it based on weight, and because I'm so much bigger than my wife, I ended up getting 7 shots in the ass. Like,
holy smokes!
I mean, it was crazy. And then it turns out, because there's not that many cases of rabies in New York, they had run out. There were no supplies. So if there was a rabies outbreak in New York, people are going to fucking be frothing and they're going to just die. And the other thing is that was the thing with the rabies. Hillary says, listen, we have a young child. Right. This happened when she was young. We can't both die of rabies. We have to go get shots because it's just totally inappropriate. So then we had to do three more sets of boosters. It was such a production. Just my wife and I wiped out the rabies vaccine supply of Westchester County. And it was like, I'm telling you, it was the stupidest thing of all time.
That is ridiculous, though. I'm
telling you, man, just careful, guy. Everybody, watch out on bats. Next time, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next time. I'm just not opening the windows, I guess, next time. It's like he got in through a crack. So, welcome to Knife Talk, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking rabies shots. We're talking getting teeth removed. Why don't we get into it? We already did the even heat. So, hey, Brian, we're going to ask some questions. What do you think?
Hey, man, can I ask you a question?
All right, so this is, hey man, can I ask you a question? This is a part of the show where you get to help drive the conversation. Ask us a question. We'll do our best to answer it. We don't always know the answers, but we know a lot of people who do. So maybe sometime we'll get back to those questions that we can't answer. Anyways, I'll kick it off right here with this first one from Blaine Wilkins. He says, hey man, can I ask you a question? How thick should scale liners be if you want to use a colored liner and get a nice color pop against wood scales? Thanks, guys. Blaine W. I think this is more of a question for you.
Well, here's the thing with color theory. When I first started doing it, I was using very thin liners, and it does give you a little, especially, obviously with a full Tang knife, the little liners will make, if you're doing file work especially, it'll make it pop. It'll also kind of help with, the differentiation between everything like that. But like, if you want colors to pop, you need different sizes and different gradations and different colors. So it's really, I think it's almost as important, if not more important, to have different thicknesses, because that's what makes that kind of radiation. And there's a couple books. There was a book that Holly Loftus sent me. It was this it was a Japanese color design book. She sent me a link to it and I got it. It was basically how colors play upon themselves. I would strongly suggest that the listeners of our podcast get involved with, like, get a color wheel, see how, primary colors work together, see how contrasting colors, see what works and doesn't work, and really kind of like look at it, but also play with thicknesses. I would say play with thicknesses. And with that said, if you want to send a DM, you can DM us your questions. Brian, how can our listeners DM us a question?
Contact us via DM at Knife Talk Podcast on Instagram. It's that easy.
Put it in again right there. So there you go. So you send it into Knife Talk on Knife Talk Podcast on Instagram. That's also how you can call in when we do call in. Today we ain't doing any calls, just getting to work because Craig ain't here. So
I'll add a little bit to that last question. So when I did a short what I do, 5 knives, my Smith & Bard run of kind of production knives. Yeah, I did a white paper micarta liner underneath the wood. They all had wood handle scales, but they had the paper micarta underneath. And my goal with that was for it to kind of act as a frame, almost like a border on some like photographs. Yes. When you used to get them printed in the old days, and sometimes you could opt for a white edging around the border around the image. And so I wanted to kind of, because the wood was beautiful, so I wanted to kind of frame it and kind of also have it kind of on display along with the knife. And so I used the paper micarta, and it framed it really nicely. And it's almost kind of like a bone white, so it's not a stark white, and so it works across a lot of different colors, and it worked really nicely. I liked it a lot. I enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be doing more of that in the future.
I really think that those liners, like, I know a lot of people just go with the thin liners and stuff like that. I think that if you play with thickness, I mean, I usually opt for 16th and above, but I also like to fool around. Like, if I'm just doing a G10 color, I'll do, like, my outside layer will be 3/16. My outside scale of one scale is 3/16, and then I'll do an eighth, and then maybe even a 16th or a 32nd, and then alternate the sizes and the colors. The reason why I put 3/16 on the outside is so the Corby bits have something to grab, because I don't want to go all the way through the Corby bit, all the way through the 3/16. I want the Corby bit to grab. That's one thing that you got to realize when you're fooling around with thicknesses and liners, is you want to make sure that if you're, depending on what you're using, obviously if you're using pins or something like that, you don't have to worry about it so much. But if you want to mechanically grab on, then you really need to kind of you need to fool around with those thicknesses to make sure that your Corbies are going to do it. And with that said, also, the people who make Corby bolts, some of these places have different thicknesses of shank, and that it will help you also determine how thick you can go with the layers. Because if you can get a shank that's an inch and an eighth, and that is going to give you more shank and thread than an inch, and you might not need so much, or you might not need a lot, or you might need some. So, that's a good question. That was a real good question.
For sure.
The next one comes from, I skipped over, Hendrik Golden. Hendrik Golden says, "Hey cuties, can I ask you a question? Over the last 15 months, I've been a student of YouTube University and books and teaching myself to forge on some weekends. Not to toot my own horn, but I think I've gotten rather good. I've never taken a class, but I'm finally scheduled one at the New England School of Metalwork in July. I know for near certain that I have some basics messed up in my head, although I couldn't tell you which. How can I loosen up my brain for the class so that I will learn correct techniques? I would hate to drive all the way to Maine from Wisconsin and get stuck in the wrong ways. Thanks for making me cackle like a mental patient whenever the heck I happen to be listening to the podcast." Good question. How should you go into classes?
So I would say right off the bat, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, but this guy, it sounds like maybe he's in his late teens, maybe early 20s, the way he's talking and the way he's wrote this question. I think my best advice would be to go in and try to be as much of a blank slate and as open to the learning as possible.
Yes.
I understand you've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube, you've read a lot of stuff in the books, but you're there paying, and the classes aren't inexpensive. But you're paying for somebody to teach you something. So allow yourself to be open to what they are teaching you. I think that would be my biggest tip.
That's 100% accurate. I tell you what, back in the day before I did any kind of blacksmithing, I know that when cooks used to come into the kitchen, the guys in the kitchen would hate it when they would say, I learned how to do this from so-and-so and such and such. Yeah. You have to go in with a blank slate. And to the point where the last class I took, which was maybe 4 years ago, I took a class at the Center for Metal Arts with Nick Anger. And when we taught, he knew that I made knives, and he also knew that I used to work at the school. And when I took the class, I decided I'm going to make this knife the way he says to make it, and I'm going to use the techniques that he says. I'm going to unlearn it. And at one point, I was asking him a question. He says, "You know how to forge? You do it." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You make knives? No, just go for it." And I said to him, like, "Nick, I'm here to learn the way you make knives. If I wanted to make knives by myself, I just go back to the shop." And it was great because it was very liberating, because it's almost like a discipline of how you can listen and how you can pay attention. And the whole story, my old art teacher used to say, draw what you see, not what you know. You're going to learn so much more. You'll take away so much more if you can just kind of like, just relax. Just relax. They know what they're doing. The New England School of Metalwork, by the way, premier school for knife making, bladesmithing, blacksmithing, and it's hard. I mean, them and the Center for Metal Arts. I mean, it's just hard to beat either one of them. But you can actually definitely go and do it. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes. But you have to just like, they're not going to be impressed. They're not going to step up and say, Nick Rossi ain't going to say, "Hey, this kid should teach the class instead of me." They're going to think you're obnoxious. Because that's what happens. I remember Uri Hoffy, when he used to teach classes and dudes would not do what he said, and they would do it the way they do it, he'd light them up. But then he'd say, "This is the way we do it in wherever." And he said, "Well, then fucking go back to wherever." He used to get furious, and he's crazy anyway. But he would say, "Then what are you doing here? If you want to do it your own way, what are you here for? You're not getting a job here. You paid to take this class, to take the class." That's what I would say. I don't know much more to add than that. I mean, I would say you can have a good time. That's the best part. You're just going to have a good time and just do what they tell you to do. And you're going to learn a lot. I love those guys. You were at the New England School of Metalwork.
Yeah,
weren't you?
For sure. Yeah, I was. I at that point I had already worked for Bob Kramer for 3 years. I'd been making knives on my own for 2 years, already forging integrals and selling work, and I went in there looking to, just like you were saying about Uri Hoffy, is just or your thing with Nick. I was like, I took that class with that particular teacher because I wanted to know and pick his brain about how he makes knives. Right. I wasn't going there to basically, see how he makes stuff and then espouse on what I've learned or what I know. I was there to just shut my lips and take in what I could, and it was a really great experience. Yeah,
that was for Craig. That was for Craig. That was 100% for Craig. Craig's not here. I gotta give it to him. I know what you're saying. I mean, shut your lips and take it all in. That's what she said. I mean, he's not here. Got to say that. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't do that. Say it.
Yeah, sorry. That was not an intentional setup.
That's the best part. What was I going to say about that? That is one thing that I think that relaxing, enjoying yourself. If you made knives and then you went to a place and then made the same knife that you could make at your home, I don't think it's money well spent. I think shit needs to look completely different than your style, and that's how you're going to do it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the next one?
Yeah. All right. This next one is from Lucas Hansen. He says, "What are some of the more outlandish cases or carriers for knives that you've seen? Sayas, blocks, vegan faux leather sheaths. What's on the cutting edge of wrapping your unit?"
wrapping your unit. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said, right? Craig, I'm listening. I know you're out there listening, Craig. I'm trying to I got to pick up for you. How do you wrap your unit?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I don't do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I hate those. When I first started in, I got those cardboard sleeves that says "caution sharp." I fucking hate those things. They look terrible. They look terrible when you send them. The sheath thing is really like, it is important, because how you send it's important. If you're gonna get one of those cases and stuff like that, you want people to be fired up when they open them up. You know, you don't.
Right.
You just don't want it wrapped up in bubble wrap. You know.
Yeah. I like what you're doing with the size, and excuse that little bit of extra noise I got. Oh, we got the electrician here doing some work. And
maybe we could ask him a question at some point. We can see what he has to say. We're the person on the podcast. We need a third.
Right. Yeah. Something I've been doing more with my size is wrapping the insides with leather. I really like leather sheaths, and I like, especially like with the Damascus, I like trying to protect the surface as much as possible. And wood's great, but I make the size out of all kinds of material, and some of it's even been stabilized. And the last thing I need is for a hard granule of something getting in there and rubbing up against the blade and getting all messed up. And so by having the surface of that kind of protected with the leather, I think has really kind of been my upping, or the way I've been upping my game. But I think like Yellow Hasenberg does these leather sheaths for his chef's knives. I think they're absolutely beautiful. They're straightforward, but they add that little extra something to that I guess the overall customer experience, because that's also part of it too, is like, when somebody unboxes the thing and opens it up, what's their experience in that? You don't want it wrapped up in a bunch of like old newspapers or toilet tissue or something like that, right? Like, you want it to be a really nice experience, because this is their first introduction to the thing that they just bought from you, and it's like the stepping off point of the relationship, their relationship with you as well as with that thing. And so I think the size I send all the stuff, all my knives and stuff in a soft, like a padded zipper pouch case too,
right?
Like those Ace cases.
And they don't like slide through.
Not well. I've been also using 1-inch insulation foam board to kind of act as a border. So I'll cut out a piece of insulation foam board to kind of fit on the inside of that pouch, and then I lay the knife down and cut out the profile, and then I put the knife inside that profile, and I also kind of make sure that the edge and the tip are wedged into the material, and it's soft enough it's not going to mess up the finish or anything on the blade, but it's dense enough that if you drop it, it's not just going to go shooting through the pouch. You probably don't need all of that. Maybe just like a block at the tip would help. But I've just been encasing the whole thing, so.
I'm not going to say that's what she said, because I'm just not really. I just have had it.
It's been a lot already.
But you understand. You understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Weird. What do you just out of curiosity? What do you think about magnetic boards for people pick their knives up on their wall? What do you think about those?
I think they're all right. I think, especially for Damascus pieces. I mean, even with monosteel pieces, I would be concerned about, if it's just a straight up metal magnet, about it scratching the shit out of the knife. But if you have one of those wooden coated ones with like the rare earth magnets embedded from the backside kind of thing, that's what she said.
There you go.
Then the wood surface will do a little bit more to kind of protect the knife, any knife, whatever, whether it's monosteel or Damascus, when it is kind of sticking on that.
Because I always get worried that like
magnetic block.
the magnet is actually gonna, if you're straight on a magnet, or even on like, I actually had seen them on like, you put a piece of blue tape over the magnet, they're still gonna like, it's still, if it's a carbon steel knife, I feel like it's still gonna rust. I've seen it rust. Sure. So I get really worried about most of those kind of those magnetic knife blocks. I'm not for it. But in regards to weird sheaths, who does it? You should see what does your electrician use? I hear him. He sounds good. What does he use? Don't ask him. Don't worry about him. You know who is using a Kydex that I really like is Nick Rossi. He's got this leather. It's like a leather looking Kydex. It's
Weird.
got like, it's an interesting texture. It's like a different texture than what I normally see.
Okay.
And that I really like that. I like that idea that it's like different. It's different, and I know that there are all these companies that are making like almost like carbon fiber versions of Kydex. I like all that shit.
Sure,
I haven't
sure.
seen anything weird. I mean, you see, on blocks, but I don't see anything weird.
No.
I love the fact that this is like a cursed day for everything.
It really is.
I think it's hilarious. You guys back there, fucking good. I hope he asks if you could pass him something, because that would be funny too. All right, so I'm going to skip down to Ben Stark.
Okay.
Ben Stark says, do you guys ever use belt grease when grinding? I've gotten some combat in the past, combat abrasives, and I'm never sure if it's really helping or not. I feel like it's keeping things cooler, but ends up clogging the grit up a bit. Do you put grease on your belts?
I tried it once.
Your belts. I mean, we're gonna get frothy with your electrician in the room. I'm gonna try to not. I'm just gonna try to not make it too hard on you. That's what she said. Oh God.
I tried greasing up one of my belts one time.
Is she
And
looking at you? Is your electrician like staring at you? What is he talking
No.
about?
probably because all from his perspective, it's a single-sided conversation.
Right. You're talking to yourself about greasing your belts. He thinks you're out of your fucking mind.
So,
Right. So
I got it all greased up, and then I turn on the machine, because this is on a 36 grit belt. I'm trying to hog away material, and all the grease heats up and just splatters all over me, on the wall, on the machine, all over the fucking knife. And I was like, well, I'm done with that. It was a brand new belt, and I was like, fuck that belt, and I threw it in the garbage. And I've never done it since. And maybe,
So
know what? I think I'm probably doing it wrong, but I don't really know what else I could do to different.
I know that some people load their belts up like old. I know that our friend Andreas Kalani loads his belts up, and he uses it for buffing. Now, I know that we would use when we were my last metal shop, when we were working with aluminum, we had to use a lot of grease when
Sure.
we were grinding aluminum, because it would just clog up the grits, everything we have. But
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if it makes it. I don't know the correct application of using grease, or when you would use grease for. Maybe somebody in the next episode, if somebody wants to write in the hey, what you should do, or give your unsolicited advice on how you use
Sure.
grease in your combat. And with that said, Brian.
Here comes the Sawzall,
Brian.
by the way.
Oh, good. Fucking great. Perfect. God damn it. That is hilarious. This is fucking hilarious. So, Brian, could you tell the listeners what kind of belts we should be using, Brian?
Combat Abrasives makes the world's best abrasive belts for knife makers. Available in any size at unbelievable prices. Go take a look at combatabrasives.com and get 15% off with promo code KNIFETALK15. Do it now.
All right. That's right, everybody. Combat Abrasives, 15% off. You're going to get you 15% off of Combat Abrasives. Yeah, this is hilarious. I'm so glad there's construction going on in the background.
That's perfect.
Well, it's up to you. We want to keep going with questions, or we come back to the questions? We have some hot takes. I know what you should do.
Let's do a couple
whatever you
hot
wanna do.
takes and then maybe come back to questions. We'll mix it up a little bit more than we kind of normally do.
So I was given a hot take from actually Ben Stark, saying I don't need to tell the listeners what a hot take is, but if you want to submit your hot takes, Brian. Okay. So submit your hot takes, and it's basically just like it's just basically frothing at the mouth in a couple of quick sentences. So the first hot take comes from Connor McCrillis. It's very timely. Hot take: a knife talk isn't taking calls because Craig is tired of getting the hook. This is one of the things that
just came in.
This has been coming in since I've said that we're not taking calls today, and it's been like, oh, Craig's too tired of taking the hook. You don't want to take the hook anymore, and so yeah. No, Craig. This has nothing to do with Craig. Is the best. We're fine. The calls have been great. We're gonna work through this whole hanging up, not hanging up thing. It'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. The next one comes from Stone Ridge Metalworks. Here's a hot take: Australians are just upside down British Texans.
Jesus.
I was kind of hoping Ben Snur was going to be on for that one.
Yeah.
Ben couldn't make it. I mean, he had technical, but Ben's lag was literally 60 seconds behind ours. It was crazy. He was 60 seconds behind. Baltic Blade says, "Here's a hot take. Don't take care of. I don't care if hybrid handles are out of fashion because they sell." Baltic Blades, there you go. Jamie Mackey says French food is massively overrated. Too much emphasis on technique rather than flavor. The fundamentals of French cooking are important, but the food is uninspiring. Here's a hot take from Chad Kimmel. Chad Kimmel was the first hang-up guy last week. He says, hot take: newborn babies are ugly. I don't want to see your ugly spawn. It looks like an alien.
I agree.
Hot take, this is from Timberly Forge: a shirt without a pocket is a blouse. And here's one that's perfect for the two of us, now that Craig isn't here, and it's from Steve Ellis. Steve Ellis says, here's a hot take: Fader is the type of driver Morocco hates, LOL.
Oh, yeah,
So,
you're a
I'm
grandma
slow
driver.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I actually my kid got her driver's permit, and we've been doing, I've been doing a lot of teaching. I've been giving her a lot of lessons outside of outside of being legal, and
Right.
now she's got the permit, so we've been going on these long rides, and she got honked at, and the first time she got honked at, she got bummed out, and the second time she got honked at, she was going the limit. She was going the limit, and I said, listen, if there's a shoulder, you can pull up, signal, and you pull on the shoulder. The dude was fucking losing his mind, and she was just like, God, where does he need to go on a Sunday? I'm like, a lot of people like that. You're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, I do drive the limit. I'm scared of dying in a car accident. So I definitely am a very defensive driver, and I never. If I didn't have to drive, I wouldn't drive. I love it when I'm driven. I love not driving.
Sure.
I think it's great. I'm ready for automated driving cars. I'm totally on board with that.
I mean, just to be clear, I am totally good with people driving the speed limit. I have no problem with that. It's when people are yielding to other cars when they're not supposed to be. Like, I've seen cars stop in the middle of the road when they have the right of way to let somebody turn out on the street, go in the other direction. It's just, I don't know. It's just in high traffic. It's just like stupid shit. I don't know. But as long as people are going the speed limit, I'm good with that.
But at the same time, if you're
And it's safe. Yeah.
The left lane is a people driving the left lane. Oh, Chad Kimmel's back. If you're hot take, if you're driving the speed limit in the left lane, you're wrong. That lane is for criminals. Speed with me and get out of the way. Dude, I love your electrician so much. What is he doing, by the way? Can you just tell me what he's doing? What's it like? The physically trying to do now?
So they're doing electrical work. They're rewiring stuff. So there's a main power coming to the shop, and then my portion is isolated, and I have my own sub panel. And then there's also a kind of storage unit that has its own sub panel. So right now he's working on removing old electrical because we're gonna have an inspector come in, and if there's any excess stuff that's not actually connected, then that needs to be taken out. Just because, either that could be possibly connected later.
Do you think he's doing a good job? You think he's doing a good job?
Yeah.
I like how you made it. I tried to trick you into saying something about him, but you didn't fall for it. I was kind of hoping you say, hey, he could move a little faster, but you just said, yeah, aces. So he knows that you're not talking about him, which makes it very funny, very funny. I'm going to get you again. I'll get him before he gets the Sawzall back on, that's for sure. Here's another hot take. the hot take from Jason Moss. He says, if you get butthurt by a joke, if you get butthurt by a joke email to the tune of $7,321 in abrasives, maybe shut down the grinder. Common Core math and TikTok challenges might be up your alley.
Sure.
There was a lot of that was based on the Combat's April Fool's joke. Fine.
You know, I saw that, and my first thought was people are probably going to be pissed about this. But then I was like, but wait, wouldn't you just look at your bank account and see that nothing's been taken out? And so if $7,000 some odd dollars worth of gear was headed your way without being charged, you should be pretty excited about that.
I'll tell you a story that I heard from a friend of ours. Actually, I'll tell you, I'm not going to say his name, but I'll tell you a story for a friend of mine who wrote me a letter. He says, listen, I was in a Zoom meeting for 2 hours, and then I got the email. I got an email with the subject line saying, you just bought $7,000 worth of thing. I could not get into my email. I saw that it was there. I saw the subject line. I couldn't go into the email for 2 hours. And for that 2 hours, I was like, what is this problem? It was stressful to him. So when he said that, I was like, okay, I understand what you're saying. He was like, can you imagine you see this message, you can't leave this meeting, and you see this message subject headline, you owe all this money, and it's like, so that was the whole thing. So in regards to that, Ross Speaks Steelworks says, hey guys, I have a hot take for you. 4 episodes of Forge and Fire isn't sufficient education to make your first knife, especially Damascus.
What?
That's true. Yeah, right. Look, everyone's mouth is, their eyes are bigger than their stomach. What are you going to do? I think it's funny. Bad Omen Knives says, good morning, you exceptionally talented bastards. I have a hot take for you. Water bottles chopping sharpness tests are bullshit unless you're building a competition chopper. So that's what he has to say. I don't know what else to add to it. Andy Neal says, Andy from Leeds, Yorkshire. On the day after lockdown, as a collective, the 68 million people in the UK would easily outdrink the 330 million citizens of the US. Cheers, fellas. Let's hit the beer garden and bottoms up. So he's suggesting that the people of the UK could outdrink the people of the United States completely.
He's clearly never visited Wisconsin.
He has not visited Wisconsin. You are right. You are right. I think that would be. I think Wisconsin could. You are 1,000% right.
I think the whole state of Wisconsin could outdrink fucking the UK. Sorry.
I agree with you. I think the amount of Polish blood flowing through the people of Wisconsin, I think you might be right. So, Andy Neal, I don't know, man. You got to go visit Wisconsin and then make that decision. Noah Bloomberg says, hot take, while it sucks when someone copies your stuff, it doesn't actually hurt you monetarily. If someone's going to make a cheap knockoff of Mareko Momasi's knife, they're never going to buy a real one in the first place, and vice versa. And I saw that knockoff Saya that you posted, Jeff. That was some bullshit. So, there you go. That's what he has to say. Look, people rip people. Look, people get ripped off all the time. We rip people off. That's why Mareko and I and Craig can't tell you our fucking secrets anymore, because we don't trust any of you. Seriously, I have an idea that I'm working on. Actually, I was gonna bitch about. There's somebody out there who thinks it's fun, and it's not a big deal. I was actually this morning. I was in a moment of contemplation. You know what I mean when I say I'm in a moment of contemplation?
You're taking a shit.
I was taking shit, and I was going. I have this thing that I want to work on. I have this thing that I'm going to work on that I really love, and it's gonna be. It has the potential to be very good. And I can't talk about it, but I was in the middle of the contemplation, and then I noticed I got followed by Knife Talk, and I'm thinking that's weird. That's weird because we're Knife Talk. How come they're already following me? And then I looked, and it's somebody who's created a fake Knife Talk profile pic, and I thought, this is weird. So I'm in a moment of, I'm being distracted. I'm being distracted from what I'm what I'm really supposed to be focusing on. So I sent the person a DM and I said, what is this? and and then I saw that it said scene, and then I wrote underneath. I said, I know I'm not gonna yell at you. Just tell me what you're doing, because I think you think I'm gonna start cursing and stuff. And then he says, don't worry, man. This is nothing serious. I'm just having fun. And I was like, well, you're not really being helpful to us. And with that said, I got a message immediately after from Mert Tansu, from our friends over at Knife Making Down Under. And I'm not going to be making that joke I used to make anymore. I made a joke a long time ago saying that, or calling them Knife Talk Down Under. Somebody has created a parody account of theirs, and they call it Knife Talk Down Under. And Mert reached out to me. He says, is this you guys? And I'm like, no, this is definitely not me. I would never, I have more important things to do than
You don't got time for that?
I don't have time for that. And you know what the funny thing is when I was talking to the guy who had the fake Knife Talk thing, I said to him, like, listen, if you want to be helpful, this doesn't help us because you're confusing people. And then he says, I don't listen to, and I said, I got a feeling that you're involved with the one that's going against, Mert. And he goes, I only listen to Toby Knife and Steel, which is a friend. Toby's a good dude. I like Toby. He listens to the podcast. He's a good guy. We're all doing podcasts to entertain you. It's fine. So I immediately screen captured it, and I just sent it to Toby saying, is this you? Like, is it possible that you have enough time to do this? And Toby's like, I don't know what the fuck what is this? He was so confused, and I was confused. And it's basically what I'm saying to people who are doing this. It's fun for you, but it's confusing to other people, and that makes it annoying. And with Mert was just like, somebody's trying to, stir some shit between us, and I just have to. With that said, I have to say, Mert Tansu, Kev Slattery, Corin are our friends. And we've known, you and I have known all three of them for a while. Like, they are our friends. I text with Mert almost every day. And I like their podcast, and I don't want there to be any idea that there's any type of friction between us and Mert and Corin and Kev, because they are our friends. I love those guys. So with that said, I'm never going to call it Knife Talk Down Under again, because I'm just like, I don't want that to be, because somebody thinks it's a joke, and then they're making a joke, and some of you people don't have to know what a sense of humor is. And with that said, seriously, that's really, we'll say something, and then people just say it, and it's like we're trying to have a little nuance with some humor here, and there's no reason to do that. So do me a favor, if this is I know that you're listening, it's enough. Even scale berms and stale memes. I knew that kid. He was a good kid. He was being creative. He was doing his own thing. He might have flown a little bit too close to the sun a couple times. He might have dipped his toe over and being inappropriate a couple times, but at least he wasn't pretending or impersonating us. With that said, and I'm not calling for Knife Talk jihad on this kid. I'm sure it's just some kid, and I'm talking to him like he might be 12 or 13. So this is not jihad time. Just know that it's not helpful. So back to I don't know, hot takes. Sorry about that. I forgot I was going to say that, and then it just dawned on me about
that's good.
Knocking people off. It just doesn't make sense. It's just not helpful to us. Being helpful to us is writing good questions, participating in the show, telling your friends. That's helpful to us. Doing a parody account that's not us, but it's using the same icon confuses people, and it's annoying. And I don't want to have to apologize to Mert, which I did in DMs, and I don't want to have to scare the shit out of people like Toby thinking I'm jumping ugly with him. Next hot take comes from Taylor Walker. Taylor Walker says, here's a hot take. Shadow bans are an excuse for poor content. Do you have any experience with any of that?
Nah.
Shadow bans?
Nope. I've never had a problem with that.
The time I did an axe, I did an axe earlier in the year, and it was not coming up it came up in my feed when I looked at my profile, but it wasn't coming up in anybody else's feed. And I believe that particular thing was what they call shadow ban. People are making up these words. People are making up these words like this is some sort of once again, Lord of the Rings. This is it's shadow ban. Come on, man. It's just just be normal.
The dark side of Instagram.
Yeah, it's just come on, man. Give me a break. No, there's a couple more. Robert Dodd says, here's a hot take. The left lane is a passing lane. Don't be that ass.
Are you ready to meet the moment? Ozzy and our friends at Chevrolet are proud to present Real Talk, Real Change to help foster racial equality in America. And we're inviting you to help. Join me, Carlos Watson, as I talk with key leaders from across the country about racial disparities in America's healthcare system. Look for The Carlos Watson Show and Real Talk, Real Change on YouTube and subscribe. Or download The Carlos Watson Show wherever you get your podcasts.
Baltic Blades again. You know what? Baltic Blades contributes a lot. I appreciate the fact he always sends in like 3 or 4 things, and I appreciate you contributing to the show, Baltic Blades. I really do appreciate it, and everybody else. That helps us. So that's it. So hot take from Baltic Blades: knife makers are all thieves of ideas, but also the group of makers who are very open to share ideas and know-how. So that was what we were referred to in this world as slap and tickle. He gave you you're all thieves, but you're all very sharing too. He gave you the slap and tickle. Congratulations, Baltic Blade, on that. Here's one from our friend Eric Markman. Eric Markman says, here's a hot take: 70% of knife makers should not have a YouTube channel. Why 70%, Eric? That's funny though. Look. It's an
unfounded statistic. It's perfect.
I mean, if you talk to Ilya over at That Works, he might say 100% you shouldn't have YouTube channels. I actually was just talking to Matt Stagmer on the Full Blast podcast, and we were talking about Ilya. Actually, if you want to watch a good video on forging technique, go to That Works on YouTube, and Ilya's a good dude, but he might be wound a little bit tight. These Russians might be wound a little tight. So he did this whole episode on forging bevels correctly. So it's actually a very, if you want to see it's a great way of rethinking the way you forge bevels. But
it's super
Eric
cool video.
Eric might be right. 70%. I love this. Just 70%. He's actually like doing mathematics. And the last one comes from Entiat River Forge. Here's a hot take: file work on the spine and 15-inch bowies of the new hybrid resin handles. It's 2021. Everybody move on. I feel like I've been attacked. So
personal.
He don't like
attack.
it. He don't like it. It's fine. I don't feel attacked. I'm just kidding. I'm just fooling around. It was good. The hot takes were good today.
Yeah.
Some of them were abrasive. Some of them a little bit abrasive. Recco, what if you were to be a little bit abrasive? What abrasives would you use?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. But if I'm hand sanding, I'm going for Indasa. Indasa Rhino Wet is, honestly, it's the best hand sanding paper I've ever used for anything, ever. Like, I've been sanding wood since I was a little kid, and finishing out handles, finishing out blades is the way. Indasa is the way to do it, and you can get it at Texas Ferry Supply. And not only just the sandpaper, you can get all kinds of knife making materials and tools, anvils even, and tongs and all hammers, all that kind of stuff. You can get that from Texas Ferry Supply. You can get your Indasa from them. Make sure at checkout you put in Knife Talk 10 to save yourself 10% on your purchase. And
there you go.
Either save it, or you can even just put it back into the order and get yourself a little something extra. But again,
I would say I'm sorry. I was just going to say go ahead. I'm sorry. We're working it out, everybody.
This is the best episode ever.
I'm sad that your electrician's gone. I know that your electrician's gone, and it makes me sad because you'll probably fucking fumping around,
hammering a little bit. In a little bit.
My favorite part with the electrician was when you said, "All right, here comes the Sawzall," and then you started. Here comes the Sawzall. I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at you. You're like rolling your eyes back in your head. That's funny. Yeah, so guys, go to Texas Ferry Supply, get yourself some Indasa USA. Put in promo code full. Sorry about that. Knife Talk 10. Get yourself 10% off. I almost gave you something else. Don't put in Full Blast 10. Ain't gonna do shit. So we can go back into questions, or we have unsolicited advice. What would you like to do?
Let's do a couple questions, and then maybe jump into unsolicited advice.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, go.
This one is from Uncle Sam Metalworks. It says, looking for advice in case I forget to call Friday. When is a good time to get an LLC. I've been making for a few years, and I recently been on the show and been getting orders. Want to protect myself, but is it worth it? Do an LLC or DBA? What is that? EXT? I don't know.
Whatever
That means. It's
it doesn't
suspense
matter.
for the
I don't-
podcast.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, LLC or DBA. I have an LLC myself. How about you?
Me too. Yeah. One thing is like you can't. It's not willy nilly. If you start a
Right.
company, you need to like you got to be. It's all by the book. So it's not like
Yeah.
It's not like that episode of Office where Michael Scott says, "I declare bankruptcy," and that it's not like that. So you have to kind of like register with the government. You got to get a tax ID.
Right.
You might have to deal with figuring out if you're going to pay quarterly or not. This is the United States. I don't know what it's like everybody else, but you got to get a newspaper article written that you exist. You have to have there's not like a ad. I don't know if they do that where you are, but like we had to get a lawyer, and then the lawyer says, "Oh, we put an ad saying that we exist, and that we send that to the thing, and it's not an ad, but like I think you go into like you file like a little want ad or something like that, and that's like it's just." There's a lot to it. It's not just getting an LLC. There's a lot to it. It's something to definitely do if you're going to do it and deal with it.
Right.
What do you think?
I used to have a sole proprietorship. And I unfortunately don't know the exact definitions of things, but what I understood the difference. Can you hear the guy in the background?
I'm so happy. I'm glad he's back.
he's like 20 feet away hammering on a wall.
Oh, I can't. Here's a little bit. I hear a little bit. He's all right.
A little bit. Yeah.
Fine.
Anyways, but what I understood the difference between the LLC and sole proprietorship is that if it's an LLC, it's the business is the entity, and so if somebody wants to try to sue you, they can only come after the business and any potential assets of the business. Versus a sole proprietorship, they can come after you and your house and your car, like as retribution for whatever there's potentially. Not that they're going to actually win, but so it's like trying to balance, what makes more sense. Maybe you get big enough to a point, or people are doing risky things with your knives, or I don't know, but at the same time, like I don't know what the legal precedents are for companies being sued for the shitty things that people do with their knives, or the unintended uses that people use the knives for. Like if somebody's using a knife as a screwdriver, the damn thing slips and then gouges their hand. Like, is that the maker's fault? Whether it's a custom maker or a manufacturer, that's not what the thing's made for. And so, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of legal stuff I still don't know, but we went from a sole proprietorship to a LLC just for that kind of safety net of if somebody does try to come after us, they can't take our house or our car or any of that other shit. It's only the business and what the business is worth, or the assets of the business that they potentially could come after.
Now, I don't know the full extent of this particular story, so I won't even name the friend of ours who's involved in, but this is if you're living in Florida, I'm under the impression like people sue like they, put deodorant on. I think it's like, I think is the suing in Florida is out of control. And I know a friend of ours was sued and like had no idea. And it was based on the knife company, and it was a real big problem. And one of the things that I like about the LLC is, for tax purposes as well, I run everything. I mean, I run like, I'm not pocketing money. Everything comes through the shop, and then I end up doing payroll between me and my partner, and then it just makes everything clean and safe. And I'm with you. I just, the thought of being personally sued, or my wife saying we're being sued because that doesn't interest me at all. And I think that having an LLC, looking into it, you're going to have to get a lawyer. I think it's important to have a real lawyer. I think that you could probably, I think that there's some websites that you can set up an LLC without a lawyer. I don't know enough about any of it to suggest any of it. I will say, though, if you do get a lawyer, learn to keep your mouth shut, because when Tony and I had to go on the phone with our lawyer for the first time, I told a joke. And when the joke was fine, at the end of the phone call, Tony told me beforehand, he said, don't say a word. We're on the clock. The meter's running when we're on the phone. And he said something, and I made a joke. And at the end of the conversation, we got off the phone. Tony says, remember that time I told you not to say anything? And I said, yeah. And he goes, how do you feel about that joke? You think that joke was good? And I'm like, yeah, it was okay. He's like, well, that joke cost us $75. And I was just like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I told you to keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. I'm like, and that's it. So we go on anytime we talk to lawyers, I don't say a word because the meter is running. So that is a true story. Tony was just like, I hope you like that joke because you paid for that joke. You paid for that joke. Fucking stupid joke.
That's hilarious. I've been learning about lawyers and how that all works. The whole like on the clock thing, and the way I understand it works, at least the lawyer I work with, they do it by tenths of an hour, so every 6 minutes. So whatever their full hourly rate is, they break that up over, basically divide that by 10, and so every 6 minutes you're getting charged again. So if you get a lawyer and you're working with them, you just got to be concise.
No small talk. No small
fucking
talk.
Jokes.
That year, the law firm sent us Christmas chocolate, like a small box of chocolates, and thank you for your being with the law firm, and thank you so much. We're so happy that you're a client. I look at this box and I call Tony and I'm like, I just got a $5,000 box of chocolate because that's what it costs. So we paid for the year. Like this is like we call it the $5,000 box of chocolate. It's like, fuck you, giving us a box of chocolate, assholes.
Box of chocolates.
Okay, the next one comes from DecCos. DEC.cos on Instagram. Hey guys, I'm a complete beginner looking for recommendations for a good respirator. I have mild asthma, so my breathing wouldn't be 100%. I'm very wary of the health risks of grinding. Am I worrying too much? Have you guys noticed any breathing issues having made knives for years? Thanks for the podcast. Really enjoying it. Declan from Ireland. Declan? I don't know. I'm with you. So what do you think about respirators and stuff?
Yeah, especially if you have any kind of respiratory issues or sensitivities to some of the materials maybe you're using, like some people have issues with cocobolo, and so
penis. We've heard
exactly.
If you get dust on your penis.
Tom Moss.
Tom Moss puts a little cocobolo on his penis and then gets all swole up, and I don't think he likes it. So. Put Coca-Cola on your penis.
You got Coca-Cola dick. Okay. But there are, so I think Craig has a positive pressure mask, and I think we have friends who also have, like Alex Steele actually wears, whenever he's doing his grinding videos, he's always got his like 3M like Tron suit thing where it's got like the hose going down his back and everything, but that kind of positive pressure that will help keep it only pumps in HEPA filtered clean air into the mask, and so nothing is getting in because it's a positive pressure. Air is flowing out of the mask, and I've actually been interested in getting one myself because I keep a beard, and I know as I clear my throat, I know that after long days of grinding, whether it's whether it's steel or wood, usually especially steel, I definitely notice a difference in just like my respiratory health, like how I'm feeling and my ability, like my ability to breathe, or how phlegmy I am, or I'm clearing my throat at like double time what I normally do, on grinding days. And so it makes a big difference. But I think for light work, if you don't have any respiratory issues, like the basic face masks are great, but for somebody like this, I would definitely look for a positive pressure. Now I know, so they can be a serious investment for, I've seen as low as like $350 up to like $2,000 or $3,000 for some of these things.
I saw the ones for like 2 G's.
Yeah. So, but we're talking about your life, your respiratory health. If you're planning on doing this long term, it's probably not a bad investment to make.
I was talking to Nick Angier about his because he wears his, and he says
he's got
to me,
one of those.
Oh, dude, he's like, he turns to me and he goes, "You work with that. G10. I don't know how you don't have one of these. He loves his. He's like, it's the best thing. That's the best thing ever happened to me. He loves it. I wish I started using a respirator when I first started knife making. I started using a respirator because my mind, if you can smell it, it's probably not good for you. So I started wearing 3M respirators when I first started this, especially working with, I had read that G10 in micarta was bad for you. So I've never ground G10 in micarta without a respirator. Even when I started, I knew it was bad. And also, when I was a metal worker, you're kind of, especially if you're in these shops, you're rarely using a respirator. It's almost like kind of lame. Like a lot of these guys.
What are you, some kind of pussy?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like that. I mean if I were to walk into a metal shop wearing a respirator while I was grinding steel, that people would think you're a pussy. And I just remember thinking that no one's wearing a respirator, so I won't. And then at night when I blow my nose in the shower, I got the black boogies all the time. You get the black boogies, and I'm just like, God, they can't be good. And then my wife says, you got to trim your nose hair. Your nose hair is too long. And I'm thinking, that's my last line of defense. I need this nose hair. That's my fucking webbing. That is the black boogie webbing. Like, all I can think of is just like, I cannot trim I got to grow more nose hair. I need the nose hair netting to prevent me from dying.
You just
and then
shove some cotton balls up there.
You got to do something. I'm going to try to be cool. The only thing you can do is have a lot of nose hair. I mean, people can't make fun of you for that, So when I started knife making, I used the respirators, and I would never have problems with black boogies. I would never cough. I would never hawk up, wood dust or metal dust, to the point where I wear a respirator when I'm doing almost everything, except for when I'm drilling holes. I'm not wearing a respirator. But anytime I'm using the grinder, whether I'm grinding steel or I'm grinding wood or I'm grinding G10, always have a respirator. If you can smell it, it's no good. That's the way I go for it. But I'm a huge proponent. I feel, and I'm not getting any younger, and I feel a million times better when I have a respirator on at the end of the day. I don't have lung problems. I stopped smoking years ago. Respirators are the move. If you can't get one of those positive pressure things, because, speaking of positive pressures, we get a pile of emails from people who eat like Indian food or tacos or chili, and then they put on their positive pressure thing, and then they fart up into the box, and then their farts get piped in direct. You just
get some essential oils. You put some essential oils on.
Put some Vicks in your
filter.
nose or something. You gotta put some Vicks in your nose, because these guys they got the box.
No, you throw a dryer sheet in. You throw a dryer sheet into your respirator.
But this happened. I guess what happens is the positive pressure is right over your crack, and if you toot, it goes right up in, and then it feeds you direct. It's like the direct feed.
That is like the ultimate Dutch oven.
Back in the day when I had my shop in Brooklyn, it was unheated. Yikes. And I would wear like a snowmobile suit. I'd get one of those, knockoff Carhartt snowmobile suits. Yeah. And I'd fart in it, and I can't tell you I was sad about it, because it really like warmed you up. I was like surprised. It was just like, these farts are like warming me up.
It's like peeing in a wetsuit.
100%. That's the thing with a wetsuit. You put a little water in there, and then your body warms up the water. The water keeps you. I would be these farts, and then I would pull open the front of my shirt, and then the heat would just waft out. And I'd be like, don't do that again. Keep them farts in. You need to keep them farts in that suit you're wearing. You keep yourself warm. So in terms of breathing issues, yeah. I mean, what? How much better can you say than that?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the next question, Mareko, why don't you tell us about the grinder you're using?
I'm using a Broadbeck grinder, and I actually was on the phone with Vince yesterday, talking about the new stuff they got coming out. They just launched their disc sander attachment arm. Which is a new thing. They just what was that, yesterday or I think it was yesterday.
Friday was the release, so I think today they're taking pre-orders now.
All right, they're taking pre-orders, so get on it, because these things are going to fly. You want to be in on a first batch. But I think that's one of the things I'm really, really impressed with, and I think is a very smart move about these guys. They're knife makers making grinders for knife makers, and they understand that kind of cross-platform flexibility is key. And I think it's smart the way they've designed their grinders, because I can use tool arms that either I've made or already owned on my Broadback, or if you already have a chassis of your own, then you can still get all the crazy Broadback arms, like the discs, like the buffing arm, like the surface grinder, and the small wheel, and the fuller, and the integral, like all of these different attachment. You can use these if you already have a chassis that takes like an 1.5-inch tool arm, or 1.25 inch, I think also they're doing. And so that's what I really love and appreciate about these things. I'll tell you, I was actually grinding my sword the other day and flopping it over onto its side so it was running parallel to the ground. It made a huge difference in my ability to grind that sword.
Oh, yeah.
It was a killer move. Yeah, I was really happy to be able to do that. So, yeah, and I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, I'm very happy with the machine. These guys are super helpful. They're on top of taking care of their customers for sure. And what is it? It's 10%. You can save Knife Talk 10.
Knife Talk 10.
Yep. You can save at Broadback. Is it broadbackgrinders.com?
Broadbackironworks.com. And I actually got an email from.
Yeah.
I got an email from Vince. I talked to Vince. Vince I think he calls everybody on one day.
He does.
I think might be what he does.
It's a check-in day.
And I had him send. That is one thing I love about Vince, is like he's doing great with all of us, and that's really good. But he sent me a little bit more. I asked him to send me more info on the disc sander. So the disc sander attachment can be purchased as an attachment only and be used with the Platin D plate, or it can be purchased with a quick arm change accessory arm. If you're going to get the disc grinder, you want a VFD. You wouldn't be optimizing the disc or the paper if you didn't have a VFD. I would just say that. With that said, great for grinding flat grinds, full tangs, the flattening scales. The disc sander will be offered at an introductory price of $375. That's the starting price, and free delivery in the United States. Competitor variable speed disc grinders are around $700, $800. The pre-sale starts April 16th, and the lead time is about 2 weeks. It's great. It's great. I mean, so the way it works is it fits on the side of your arm, and then it uses a belt to spin the disc, so the disc is on the side. So you could actually, if you had the Broadback Ironwork grinder, you could use the disc facing horizontally or vertically. So keep in touch with those dudes, because they're doing some really, really cool things, and we've given them enough. So that's enough. That's enough of that. You heard enough about that. I got unsolicited advice. More questions?
Let's do it.
What would you? Okay,
let's do the unsolicited advice.
Okay, so I know you didn't ask, or it's basically unsolicited advice. People say, you know what you should do, or I know you didn't ask, but, and then you give us. So Baltic Blades is back. He says using reamers are great. If you have a 5mm pin and a 5mm drill bit, use a 5.3mm reamer. It works wonders, fits like a glove, and no need to play with the drill bit or sand down the pin material. That is good, because when I do pins, I like the hole to be very tight. That was for you. You there?
Oh. Hello?
Fine. Yeah, can you hear me? So I end up putting my pins in my drill, and then I'll run the pin on the hand drill, and then I'll put a piece of sandpaper down it. So you don't have to do that with that what you're calling. Okay, This comes from Chef Fry Guy. Chef Fry Guy says, "Hey guys, I know you didn't ask, but as a cost-saving measure for U.S. makers, if you can wire your shop with 480 volt, you will cut your electric bill in half with the use of all heavy motors. 480 volt can deliver a better amperage, reducing the pull overall. Thanks." I wish your electrician was there, that we could ask him if that's true. Because that would be the interview of interviews.
That's three-phase power, right? 480.
I don't know. Is he there? Can you ask him?
Nah, he's on
right
the other
there.
side of the shop.
Oh, that would have been funny. God damn. Hey,
Hey, I got a question for you.
Shut up. I'm on the ledge. Luke Berkman says, here's the age-old question of what we call ourselves. Knife makers or bladesmiths? My dad's first and second language wasn't English, and being over 70 years old, he called me a shape knifener. He
right
called his son a shape knifener a few weeks ago, and I kind of like it. So now we are shape knifeners. And I wish Craig was here for this last one. This last one comes from Shane Sosh. That's what it is. Shane Sosh. Hey, cuties, I know you didn't ask, but CRI is as important when choosing shop lights as temperature. A high CRI LED 95 plus will show colors better. Greens and reds will look more vibrant and will also help your indoor photography.
What does CRI mean?
I had no idea. Dude, this is Craig's wheelhouse. He fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You can ask electrician. I mean, if he's around, we got a couple for him now. If he comes back, we got 2 questions for him about the voltage and about the CRI. So if he comes back, feel free to ask him.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So okay. Well, with that said, I'm out of unsolicited advice. Everyone, I think that what happened is the phone calls have made people want to call. So they're not sending in as much. But other than that, everything's good. Would you like to go back to questions, or would you do a couple more questions and wrap this thing up?
Yeah, let's do one more each, huh? How's that sound?
Great.
All right.
Great.
God, that one is a book. All right, I'm just gonna try it. Bald
Don't do it then.
Man, knife and tool. Oh, let's see if my dyslexia kicks in. It says Craig Marco and Mr. Fader. Why do you get the Mister, by the way?
They're afraid of me.
They
should be afraid of Craig.
Old man Fader. Mr.
That's
Fader.
right. They used to be afraid. They're kind of. Everyone's a little afraid of me.
Don't let your baseball get into his yard.
Yeah, that's right.
He'll feed it to his dog.
We've had some my wife and I definitely have had some old man situations like what are you doing over there? Well, you almost killed your neighbor. You've had some old man situations too. You don't even see him, and ran him down.
Yeah.
Get behind the wheel.
All right, he says, I have been making leather sheaths with my knives, but absolutely dread sheath making after I complete each knife for 2 reasons. First, they take me forever to complete, and second, I feel like my beginner-level leatherworking skills make an underwhelming first impression when a customer receives a knife. I've bought custom knives before that came without a sheath and personally find it annoying to not receive a sheath with a knife. I'm thinking Kydex is the route to go for me at this time. I'd love to hear any of your thoughts on sheaths. Thanks for the great content and entertainment, Brent. I mean, I think that's actually a good idea. Go to Kydex.
What?
Go into Kydex.
It depends on what you're doing, because a lot of people, like I have customers who are home cooks, and they just take the Kydex sheaths and put it in a box because they have a knife block, or they have like a drawer. Like I have a drawer, and then people don't use the if you're traveling, if you're a cook and you're traveling, Kydex is great. I always get weirded out by like culinary knives and leather, only because like you gotta have a lot of Gluck in there. I ever tell you about? Yeah. I worked with this pasta chef a while ago, and he sent a knife. I was testing a knife with him, and he sent it back for me to make a couple changes. I pulled it out of the sheath. There was literally ravioli on the knife. He stuffed it. He stuffed it full of. You would use it. He'd wipe it down and put it back. He had like if I had boiled the sheath, I would have had the most delicious dinner. It would have been like soup. It would have been like delicious ravioli soup, because these guys don't clean it out, and that's the problem I feel like with like culinary stuff is people putting all this stuff in their sheath full of Gluck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is nice to be able to, when they open it up, it's nice. But I don't want to do any leather. I can't.
Sure.
I can't handle it.
Yeah, well,
Have
and I
you done-
think what's that?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're not feeling confident about your leather working, because leather working can be pretty straightforward, but it also can look super amateur if you just lack the tools to make things happen. And I feel like I'm not saying that Kydex is easy. I've honestly never done it myself, and I would be very intimidated to do it for the first time on a chef's knife to send out. But I think you can, as a beginner, you might have a better time creating a clean look with the Kydex than maybe you would with the leather.
Right.
And so that might be, at least for now, the way to go until, if you really want to up your leather game, then work on that until you feel more confident in that. Or get whatever tools you need to make it cleaner and looking right. Or maybe you hire somebody to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
To do the leather sheaths, if you really want to do leather. And there are people out there who do leather work for sure.
The one thing about the leather to me is like exactly what you're saying. I'm not prepared for the first one to look like complete shit after I spend a lot of time on it. Like, I'm now at the point where I'm just like, I know it's not going to be good. And I know a lot of guys who do a great job, a lot of girls who do a great job. Kydex for me, I never tried to make, I don't make the best Kydex sheets. I make them very simple and clean and they look fine. And I also, because I keep them very inexpensive, you roll them into the price. And then if the person wants to get a leather sheath, I haven't knocked them $200 for a Kydex sheath. It's kind of, it comes with. So it's just a nice little addition. But I'm with you. The leather scares me. And the other thing is like, I'm just not interested in buying hide. That doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
I just get involved with all that. I just don't really have an interest in it. But at the same time, it's like, it does look fucking awesome. Some knives look so good with
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, you want to find one last one?
Let's see. I got a good one here for you to answer.
Oh, for me?
Yeah, this is from Jamie Mackey. I've got a question for Mareko to be interrupted while answering, but I'm not gonna do that. When bedding the hidden Tang handles using wax or Vaseline to stop epoxy from sticking to the Tang, how do you clean up the Tang hole before the final glue up? I've been using a bit of sponge taped to a stick, but there's got to be a better way. So after you bed, so just describe what bedding the Tang is if this is the first time people have heard about it.
Okay. Yeah, so bedding the Tang is essentially for a hidden Tang handle construction. Usually you drill a hole that's just slightly oversized, and like, so for example, my Tangs are usually about 3/16, or not 3/16, I'm sorry, like a quarter of an inch to about 5/16 of an inch at the thickest area, just underneath the integral bolster, and about 1/2 inch wide. So what I would do is I would take a 1/4 inch drill bit and I would drill 2 holes parallel to each other into the handle material. I would then use that same drill bit to kind of auger out and break up that webbing between those 2 holes. And then I would follow that with a broaching tool, which is basically almost kind of like a handsaw in a way that you can use to kind of cut material away on the inside and clean that up a little bit more. But now you have that cavity, and it doesn't necessarily fit the Tang perfectly. So what you do is you take some epoxy, you mix it up, and pour it into the cavity as if you're doing a full glue up, except for before you even start doing the epoxy, you coat the Tang with some wax. And this is a tip I actually picked up from Nick Wheeler in one of his videos doing a hidden Tang construction. And what it does is it leaves a very thin layer of wax on the Tang. And so when the epoxy hardens up and you got everything together and the epoxy hardens up, there's where that epoxy is in contact with that wax, it doesn't harden up completely. And also it creates a little bit of just that thin kind of, I don't know what to call it, like a
membrane.
Yeah, like a membrane basically. But what you can do is you could gently warm up on my integral knives. What I would do is I would kind of use a hand torch, like a hand propane torch, to gently. You could probably even do this with a heat gun, honestly.
Heat gun, yeah.
To heat up the bolster, and what that will do is that heat will then travel down into the tang, and that will heat up and soften that wax, and then you should be able, it might take a little bit of work, but pull the handle off of that thing, and now you can work with that handle off of the blade, but put it back together with basically a perfect fit. And so one thing that Nick has going for him, as well as what I do with mine when I do the bedded tang situation, is that we're using mechanical fastener. So Nick always puts like a domed pin or something like that into the handle. I'm using a tang nut basically at the bottom of or like a pommel rivet at the back of my handle. So I'm attaching and bolting the knife on from the back. Without a mechanical fastener, it's hard to get in there, or it's hard. I would feel not very confident, or I guess I'm having a really hard time answering this question. I would be a little concerned about the wax, because when you go back in to glue things up, that layer of wax, oh, the electrician's back. That layer of wax could cause some problems. So what he's talking about is cleaning that wax out. And so I have used like a modified Sawzall blade, actually, that I've ground down to about 1/8 of an inch like tall, and I use that to kind of scrape out any wax and kind of rough up the surface of the epoxy inside the tang slot, so that the new epoxy has something to bite onto and has some texture to also bite onto. I also will cut little notches or teeth into the tang to also create some texture for the tang to also kind of grab onto with that new epoxy once everything's bedded. But I think using a mechanical fastener in addition to all of that will also help really just firmly secure that everything's going to stay together.
I think you hit on something that was really important, which is,
yeah,
if you rough up the surface inside the tang after you've done the bedded tang,
yeah,
if you rough up the surface and then you make knocks on the tang, maybe on the grinder, you almost be making like almost like grips for what places for the epoxy to go, because obviously once you've done the bedded tang, there's hardly any room for epoxy in general. So you kind of want to make a couple notches where there's some places where epoxy can kind of like hold on to, and then they have a place to go. Otherwise, there's no room for epoxy.
Right. Well, and I've actually, the first couple times I did bedded tangs, it was such a tight fit that I would pour the epoxy in like I normally would, and then I would follow it with the knife and try to get the tang in there. And because it was such a tight fit, the hydraulic pressure was not allowing me to get the knife all the way in. And so what I've started doing, again, with those modified Sawzall blades, is cutting little channels on the wide side of the tang. And it doesn't affect the fit up, but it allows that epoxy somewhere to rise up through as you're pushing that knife down into the tang slot. And yeah, it just gives it a place to go. But I've seen people who were clamping up, and the hydraulic pressure was so much, and it was like on a beautiful burl wood or something like that. And this is something that kind of happens sometimes with burls, is that it actually blew out the handle. And I think it was actually, unfortunately, it was our friend Jordan Lamotte. He blew out the handle trying to put it on because the hydraulic pressure was too much, and it like blew a big old crack in it, and he had to scrap it and start over on that handle. And I actually had that also, same thing happen to me. And after already struggling and having issues before, and that one finally cracking, I was like, either I'm going to stop doing this or I need to figure something out. And I realized if I just cut a little channel in there for the epoxy to release, then it would be good to go. So
you're cutting the channel in the handle, not the tang.
In the handle, yeah. And it's I'm not all over the place. It's literally only the width of the Sawzall blade, which is like what, 1/16 of an inch. And that little bit allows, again, it just allows somewhere for that epoxy to ooze out. Otherwise you will come up against that hydraulic pressure issue.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's almost like it's floating. So you push it down and it just wants to come right back out.
Pushes right back up, yeah. Yeah.
Fucking good one. Ain't gonna get much better than that. That's a fucking good one. I was gonna dude.
My explanation in the first half sucked.
Dude, no, the explanation was good. No, you're 100% right. You're 100%. No, that was great. That hydraulic pressure, I always knew it happened, but I couldn't explain it, or I didn't have no word for it. But that's perfect. Perfect. That's probably a perfect way to end. We hit all of our spots, right? Yeah, even heat, soul ceramics, combat abrasives, and Dasa USA churches. Guys, we're gonna see you next week with calls. So if you want to go to follow us on Instagram, this is probably Craig. Throw in that. Tell Brian to tell us what to do. You heard it right there. So follow us on Instagram, Knife Talk Podcast. Don't follow the motherfuckers who are making. They're playing. It's too. You're fine. You're fine. You're confusing our listeners, which annoys me. I had to apologize to 2 people today. And I don't want to have to apologize to anybody anymore. So go follow Knife Talk Podcast on Instagram. And then you can interact with the show. We can do calls. It's going to be fun. And then last thing is next week, Saturday, is going to be a live show. So that's Saturday the 24th, I think. Yeah, 24th. It's going to be a live. Is it 24th? I don't think it's. Yeah. When is the Damasteel thing? It's 24th?
It's the 24th.
Damasteel is doing the Chef Knife Invitational. Saturday, I think it's the 24th. Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
Correct.
Am I getting my...
You're 100% correct.
I guess. Damasteel's doing an invitation.
I'm telling you, you're right.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, Damasteel Invitational is going to have their invitation. You can buy tickets. Go to Damasteel. Go to their website. Go to their Instagram page. Get tickets, and there will be other people like Mert Tansu and Salem Straub and Camacho Knives and Quentin Middleton and John Phillips and just a pile of people that we know. And they're going to be putting their knife. Matt Parkinson. There's a pile of people. And then they're going to have booths. And then you're going to be able to interact with the people virtually. So you get your tickets there, and then we'll be doing a live show. So it's going to be Saturday, and it's going to be 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And you can interact with the show. You could probably, if you want to just listen live, you could probably just listen. We're going to do a show. It's going to be a 3-hour show. You could probably listen live. You can fuck around, ask a question. But you got to buy tickets. It ain't free. So you got to buy tickets and then get involved. So Damasteel Invitational, that'll be next week. We're going to do, what we'll do is we're going to do the Friday show next Friday. We're going to have a call-in show. The Saturday we'll use it for the following week. We'll record it and play that back. And, if you come on the show, we'll say something to say. So with that said, guys, thank you for putting up with us. Craig will be back next week, God willing. And that's about it. Take us away, Craig.
This show is brought to you by The Makery, the podcast network for makers.
There you go.
Oh, wait, we're not using that one anymore, are we?
No, Derek from Malden's using that from now on. Our buddy Derek from Malden is using, I'm getting all these messages saying, Derek from Malden's using the old Knife Talk theme song. He's still using it, so.
That's funny.
That's fun. Well, here's the funny thing, and this is now, it's no secret. This is the after show. This is where we're just like, we don't have shit in front of us. We did all our spots. We're just kind of like,
yeah.
Poor Ben was so fired up. We were going to have Ben on, and the reason why I called Ben up is because he's been on Full Blast a couple times. He's got the mic. He knows how to set it up. He's got everything squared away, and he's willing, and he's funny, and he's great. And I was so fired up for him to come on. And he's fast, and he said, yeah. That's the other thing. It's like getting guests on can be such a production. If I know somebody can get set up easily and they want to do it, it's easy. He was so upset. The look on his face when we were trying to do sound check, and his lag was a minute behind. His steam was coming through his ears, and then, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? It was like I felt terrible for him. He was cool, and we'll get him on at some point.
No, it was nuts. I've never, we've experienced delays, obviously, and sometimes as much as like maybe 10 or 20 seconds, but it was a literal minute. Like you had to call him to talk to him because the delay was so bad. And then even
Yeah.
after you hung up, we were still hearing his responses to your phone call.
I had never in my
nuts.
life thought that there would be a delay, a minute-long delay. That was like crazy. And he was standing there just, you know, and he was answering a question from like a minute ago. It was like, I felt terrible for him. But he's a good dude.
Hold on a second. I'm looking at the Damasteel thing right now.
Go ahead.
Right here on their page, where you can get tickets. It says, "Get your free ticket today.
When is that?
Join from a compatible browser." And yeah, so it looks like it's free to attend. You can register and attend the thing for free. Here, I'll shoot you the.
I'm on it right now. Tickets. Well, people, if it's free, people figure it out. I don't know where you get it for free though. I don't know.
Well, I mean, just like right there, it says "get tickets" at the bottom. God, I'm trying to think.
Dude, it is gonna be
Anyways.
so wild. It's gonna be so wild.
It could be a fucking madhouse. We'll see. I don't know. It's gonna be fun or interesting or whatever. Either way.
I think it's going to be fun. I think we all, luckily, I've been doing research on a lot of the people, just so we have like we're not going to be able to do long form interviews, but we're at least going to be able to kind of differentiate everybody. And luckily for us, we know most of these guys. So, you know, like Isaiah Schroeder and Mert and Salem and Josh Prince and Mark Weinstock, we kind of know them. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of like have something fun. And they're going to be, you know, this isn't going to be optimal listening because these guys are also like, they probably don't want to do this. I mean, I can't imagine wanting to do it, be honest with you. Like, you know, I don't know. It'll be fun. I was thinking about it, and because we're going to also interview Tyler Florence, and I'm not going to bring up that we both worked for Charlie Palmer. I was thinking about it because he actually was the chef at the restaurant I was the manager for. I was the manager for a restaurant called Alva with Tony and my buddy Scotty.
Oh yeah.
And before it was Alva, and I have the Alva sign in my shop. Before it was, and that was Charlie's place. And before it was Alva, it was a place called the Chef and Cuisinaires Club, and it was basically Charlie wanted to come up with an after hours place for cooks and chefs to hang out. So like when Tyler was the chef there, it was a tiny kitchen, and it was like 50 seats and a nice bar. It was like a very not very Charlie Palmer restaurant. It wasn't a dive, but it was like dark, and it was a fun New York place, and that's where all the chefs. You know what? Fuck it. I got a story for you about Alva. I'm not going to bring up. It would be very narcissistic for me to kind of like hork the interview by talking to Tyler Florence about, you know, we both work together. We go to the Christmas party. I never met him. I don't know anything about him. I don't know half the cooks who know him, but I'm not, but it reminds me of a story to Alva, and I'm going to tell this story because how bad? I mean, Mario Batali ain't listening to this show, right? Back in the day, Mario Batali, who is he's run out of the business now because he's touching everybody. He's sexually assaulting people. I don't know if he's sexually assaulting people, but he basically created a toxic work environment to the extreme, but considered one of the greatest chefs in New York. No question. Bobo, Poe, his restaurants, he kind of led the Italian food revolution in New York in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. He had a great show called Molto Mario. He was awesome. He came to Alva one night with a friend of his. He got fucking obliterated. And he hit on everything in that. He hit on my friend. The chef's aunt was in for dinner.
Oh my God.
He hit on the chef's aunt. He hit on the sous chef from this other restaurant. Showed up with his fiance and he wanted to introduce himself. Oh, Mr. You know, he's the sous chef of this restaurant. He wanted to, you know, ingratiate himself. Oh, chef, it's such an honor to meet you. Mario was all over the guy's fiance. It was like, we were just like, he was he may or may not have been going to the bathroom for some reason or not, or who knows. But I mean, it's not a, I'm not telling stories out of school. I think he might have been doing a couple bumps, whatever. He was like,
That's
he
cocaine
drank
for all the kids, by the way.
he drank a pile of stuff, and he was grabbing everybody. It was just like, and the funny thing was, I talked to my dad the next day, because my dad was close with the father-in-law, his father-in-law, who ran Coach Farms Cheese. And I told him, my dad, I was like, dude, Mario's a piece of work. And Dad said, what do you mean? I'm like, he was hitting on every single person in that place. If you were not a man, you were getting grabbed. It was shocking, but that was it was a very disillusioned thing. And now he's like run out of the business. Nobody wants anything. He can't do a thing. He had to get rid of, he's gotten rid of out of all of his things, because he's just such, the stories about him are so terrible.
Yeah.
Back to, that has nothing to do with Tyler Florence, but I just, all of a sudden it dawned on me. I was just like, I've been wanting to tell that Mario Batali story for a while.
Yeah.
No one believed me back before he was like, when he was considered one of the greatest of all times. He's on his show with Gwyneth Paltrow fruiting around Italy, and I'm just like, I saw this guy firsthand. He is terrible. So,
Yikes.
But it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to Dam of Steel. We're going to have some fun, and you're right, it could be a total shit house, but I think we'll have some fun.
Yeah, something I've seen, or not seen, but heard on other podcasts or other shows when they do kind of like at an event kind of thing. Like when I listen to food podcasts and they're at like the South Beach Food and Wine Festival or something like that, right? Everybody's busy as hell, running around like with chickens with their head cut off. They're drinking, they're eating food, talking to everybody. And so instead of trying to get an interview, they did like 3 questions. And everybody, like anybody they came up to, like whoever these celebrity personalities, for us it would be obviously the makers at the show, they just had 3 flat questions that they asked everybody, and it didn't even necessarily have to do with food. Like it was just like very random questions, like what was your first dog's, your first pet's name, or like almost like like password security password security questions.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
That could be it. It'd be the password security question quiz or interview.
Yeah, then no one's going to be nervous about that. Craig had mentioned that one of the contestants is a little bit nervous to talk to us, and once again, we're going to just have some fun. Yeah. I was kind of hoping to at one point I was thinking we could do it like the way they do like a UFC fight, because they are competing for these positions, and I was just thinking,
sure.
It would be funny to have like fight cards on everybody, and here comes, Quentin Middleton, hailing from South Carolina, and it would be funny to kind of like treat it like a sporting event. For some reason, my broadcasting brain was just like, that would be really funny, but it's just like, what else you gotta do? I mean, get out of your fucking mind. So,
right.
All right. So what else? What do you got cooking for the weekend?
Ooh, man. What is it? Oh, actually, so what is it? Today's Friday. I'm getting together with my brothers-in-law, and we kind of hang out every once in a while and just have a dude's night, because we all have our families. We all live in the same town, and we get along well, but we're so busy with our own families.
Right.
We hardly ever get to hang out, and so every once in a while we get together, we cook some food, we drink a little bit too much, watch some movies, whatever. Tonight I've been craving Philly cheesesteak sandwiches for a long time now. It's been a long time since I had a Philly cheesesteak. I know you're not doing the bread and the
I'm not
cheese.
doing the meat.
You're not eating
I'm doing the meat.
snacks. You're not doing meat.
nothing.
You're not doing beer. You're not doing booze.
I do have a Perrier ready to go. I'm gonna get home and I'm waiting for that Perrier. Pathetic.
That perfect. Do you hold it up to your ear as you untwist the cap and it?
No, but I chug
up.
it like a Heineken. Thank God it's a green bottle like a Heineken. On my mind, I'm like pretending it's a Heineken.
You should just get some O'Doul's.
I can't do that. I can't do that either. I gotta do I gotta do less than O'Doul's. I'm not that crazy. I'm actually not doing so bad, right? So you guys gonna have a Philly cheesesteak tonight?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be doing the cooking. My brother-in-law has this. They just bought a new place, and it came with a giant, beautiful gas grill. Things like practically brand new, and he has a big old cast iron griddle. So we're gonna throw that on the grill.
Damn.
And I'm gonna do the Phillies, kind of like how I used to cook in restaurants, and just Philly's a simple sandwich. But I've been craving one so fucking bad lately. So yeah, it's gonna have, I think the traditional Philly is just steak and or a cheese whiz. I almost just said whiz. Because that's what they say. But we're gonna do onions. Sometimes they do onions, sometimes they do mushrooms, sometimes they do peppers. So we're gonna do onions and peppers. I made last night we did tacos, so I took the leftover taco stuff and made a 5-layer dip. We're gonna eat some chips and dip. We got plenty of beers, plenty of booze.
Fuck.
We got plenty of shit to talk.
God, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. Last time actually, apparently my brother-in-law had already planned that, anticipated that it was going to go late into the night. We're going to be a little too drunk to drive home, or everybody's going to crash. I didn't know how deep we're going to get, and I didn't say anything to my wife. And then I don't come home, and at 4:00 in the morning, she's texting her brother, asking where the fuck I'm at, and I'm like, "Oops,
no,
I fucked up."
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So this time we're kind of taking that into account. Plus, I'm getting my my second shot. Right, we talked about that earlier. So I'm getting my second shot. I think I'm gonna have to dial it back, at least when it comes to the drinking. And I usually I hardly ever drink anymore. So it's like it's terrible, or I guess it's not terrible, but back in the day, you could throw them back like crazy. Now I'm like 2 drinks in, I'm feeling it pretty good, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really need to go farther than this, and maybe I'll re-up a couple hours later. But after that, it's like by the end of the night, I'm 3 drinks in, I'm ready for bed.
My wife and I haven't had a drink in a month, and we wake up in the morning and we both turn around to each other and say, "How do you feel?" And she says, "I don't feel any different than if I've drank." We still have headaches. So it's just like, she's like, "I don't feel any better not drinking, to be honest with you." I was like, "I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different." We're all like, maybe we should, we're both going to swear away. But I'm looking forward, the only thing I'm looking for, I'm going to go see, my sister did an art show up in Woodstock. We're going to go check out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to watching the next episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus. I'm hooked. I'm hooked onto that one. Nice. That's a good one. If you got Disney Plus, the guy who plays the Falcon is great, and the guy who plays Bucky is great too. And there's it's fun. If you're an old comic book guy, it's actually pretty good.
For sure. I know I'm late to the game with this one, but my wife and I have been burning through The Mandalorian, and it's really good. And it's what's hilarious is like the baby Yoda is a fucking ugly little thing, but the whole time it's just like, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah. Are you on season 1 or season 2?
We just finished season 1. We're like 2 episodes into season 2.
You're psyched, dude. You are psyched. That's now you're hitting the fucking. You're hitting. Oh my god, I'm so jealous because
with this. Oh.
I'm not gonna spoil anything, but after I think third to the end, it's fucking dynamite.
Sure,
it's a fucking awesome show. The second season blows the doors off the first season.
Dude, the end credit artwork is fucking nuts. It's so intense. The first couple episodes I skipped past it. I was like, end credits. Who gives a shit?
I'm gonna tell you who that guy is too.
The third
follow
one
him on Instagram.
I don't. But the third or fourth episode, my wife was going to make some popcorn or get a glass of wine or something, so I just let him roll because we had time. And I was looking, I was like, "Oh my god, it is so intense!" Like the amount of detail in the artwork for what looks like basically like storyboarding.
I'm trying to. I follow him on Instagram.
It's freaking.
I'm going to try to find him real quick.
Yeah.
Just give me a second. I think I can find him. It's I feel like it's Mattias. It's I think I got it. Nope. It's like it was. I thought it was Matt something or other. Fuck. I feel terrible because I know exactly what you're talking about. It's shit. It's the storyboard guy for The Mandalorian. He's awesome. He is totally awesome. God, I hate myself for not being able to find it. I should. He's got a great. I sent him a nice message, and I don't remember who the storyboard guy from Mandalorian is, but that dude is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, don't skip WandaVision. That sucks. I know everybody says fuck that shit, but Bucky and Bucky and the Falcon is fucking good. Super good.
Yeah,
I think we've done enough, don't you? I think we've done enough, right?
I think we did it.
Craig, thank you very much for trusting us. We're looking forward to having you back. We hit all our spots. We did everything. All right, so this is it. All right, guys. Mareko, we'll see you next week.
The House of Roll journeys far and wide to bring you exceptional quality kitchen and bath fixtures. We've discovered the world's best craftsmen and techniques. Using materials native to the region and tools accustomed to individual craftsmen, we strive for perfection every step of the way. With all of this, you'll see the details of your own story, the story of a life well crafted. This is the story Craft tells. Welcome to the House of Roll.
Are you ready to meet the moment? Ozzy and our friends at Chevrolet are proud to present Real Talk, Real Change to help foster racial equality in America. And we're inviting you to help. Join me, Carlos Watson, as I talk with key leaders from across the country about racial disparities in America's healthcare system. Look for The Carlos Watson Show and Real Talk, Real Change on YouTube and subscribe. Or download The Carlos Watson Show wherever you get your podcasts.